Hi, everyone. I just missed a great soundbite from Michael. We were talking about, maybe I can get you to say that again, and we're going to jump right into content. We
Okay.
were talking about living vicariously through our friends on Twitter, through their
Hmm?
children, their animals. And you had mentioned when you run into people, you didn't know there's something about the relationship. It's just very powerful.
I was saying that, how we go to conferences or I run into somebody around town that we've interacted on Twitter and we have kind of a relationship. The relationship between us two, it's dynamic and it's real and it's sometimes more personal than that of somebody that I've known in real life my entire life. Because we kind of share these moments, on Twitter, these conversations that really mean a lot. And, I've been on Twitter since 2007 and I've met some really good people, and you are definitely one of them
Thank
on Twitter. And
you.
it's been, I can probably live without Facebook. I could definitely live without LinkedIn. I don't know if I could survive long without Twitter. It's that way for me to get news and content, and it's really forces me to stay authentic and stay real with people. And I think that's one reason why I wrote the book. It's because business is starting to encounter that and starting to change the way that they behave as well.
This is the book he's referring to. Smart Business is Social Business. And I'm glad you brought that up because I definitely could not live without Twitter. So at least I'm not the only one. I thought I had a problem. So this is Michael's book. And I have to say, just through being on Twitter and social networks, I am fortunate enough that I get a lot of book copies sent my way. And I don't always have time to get through all of them. And I certainly rarely get to do a video interview like this just with scheduling. So, you guys, this book is that good that Michael's been kind enough to take some time and actually jump into it with us. This is your masterpiece. This is your baby. Filled, and you mentioned in the beginning, but filled with practical, simple information. You can just jump right in. And I feel like this is written for business owners and entrepreneurs. Was that kind of the market you were going after?
Yes. Yes.
It's really
And it
good.
was, my experience kind of professionally before working at an agency was on the client side or the business side. And very early on in my career, I started at Sony as a marketing guy. And, it kind of progressed, and I've worked for the HPs and I've worked for a few startups and most recently at Intel. And I've realized that there's this weird dynamic that's happening in business. And because all these companies have created Facebook and Twitter and communities, it's caused this internal, what I call anarchy within the organization, where marketing feels that they own social media, PR feels like they own social media. So there's this kind of natural clash, and it's and almost like a land grab for that particular job function, and it's causing a lot of stress. And I've seen firsthand, colleagues and just people that I know in the industry who have it's that bad, and their morale is that bad because they don't
Yeah.
really know what they're responsible for day to day, that they end up leaving their companies. And so that's a big problem for business. It's a big problem for people who are working when there's like unclear roles and responsibilities.
You are so right. And actually, I know a few people that are going through that right now. So I won't name names, but definitely going to recommend this book to them because you just go through everything. There's so many nuggets in here, but and I actually didn't mark this particular nugget, but you talk about in an organization and when change comes around, those organizational silos. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because you just explain it so clear, so beautifully. And for me, I had an aha moment because I think every business has these different departments or organizations or teams by either service or function or client they serve. And they're all fragmented off. And then next thing you've got separate little countries almost
Hmm.
warring against each other, and then throw, like you said, social media into the mix,
Right.
and it can be really confusing. So can you talk a little bit about organizational silos and breaking those down?
Sure. So I think silos kind of exist, and they've kind of gave birth, years ago when business first kind of evolved here in the last century, and it's because operationally it's easier to work in silos.
Yeah.
Because if I work with one group of people and I can communicate with that group of people and get things done really quickly, then it makes sense from from an operational perspective. But when you're talking about kind of the social web and this idea of being transparent and integrated and open, the silos really kill that because let me give you a quick example. I used to work for Yahoo. Actually, I spent very short time at Yahoo because I was laid off. And, before I got there, I was thinking to myself, I'm so excited. I'm going to work on an integrated campaign. I'm going to work with Yahoo Mail and Yahoo Answers and, OMG and Yahoo News and do really fully integrated campaigns. Right. And it never worked that way because each of those functions, each of those products had their own engineering groups, their own finance groups, marketing. Mm-hmm. And so, and they're individually, they're very effective. Yahoo News as a business is great. OMG, Yahoo Answers. But from a social media perspective where we're trying to reach the customer, the social customer that's inundated daily with all these different messages, then they're not even all marketing messages. They're just simply communications with friends, families, and whatnot. And, it really makes it tough to do that. So I talk about silos, and they exist, and business leaders have talked about silos for many years. But the reality is silos will never be broken down. They'll never be taken away unless, leadership within a company forces it. And, we talk a lot about, and I see this all the time, articles on Forbes and Adweek and all this where, we need to get executive buy-in. And I believe that, but it's much deeper than that because for a CEO to say, okay, I believe in social media, here's $1 million, go create a Facebook app. I mean, that's not executive buy-in. Executive buy-in is when a senior leader, not necessarily the CEO, could be somebody close to him or her, where they actually change their own behavior. So instead of having like the executive admin write up a memo and sent via email to the employees, this person's doing, this leader needs to tear down that silo and communicate directly, freehand, through blogs, through face-to-face, through town halls. And I don't mean that, a CEO has to jump on Twitter, right? I mean, it's good if they do. I mean, it's respected. Tony Hsieh of Zappos is well regarded from that perspective. But it means if you truly want to change your company from a leadership perspective, they need to change themselves first. Once that happens, then their staff begin to change, and and down here at the bottom half of the organization, they're already open and transparent. So you kind of meet halfway, and you begin to create an organization of openness and transparency, and that's what truly breaks down silos.
Oh, I love that. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. I hear the same things you hear, and you address so much of the challenges that are going on this very minute for people in this book. So it's really, really good. Our friend Brian Solis at the very beginning did a beautiful intro for you, and he said the shifting landscape is segmenting the customer base into 3 distinct groups. We have traditional, we have online, and now social. And I just love the way it broke it down. 1, 2, 3, bing, bang, right. Boom. Can you talk a little bit about the 3 groups and the difference? Because that kind of plays in. If you're on there and you're trying to be open and transparent, what's the whole goal of this? What's our action plan? You talk in the book about the listening is great, but without a plan of action, right? What are we doing? So,
Jeff, your husband,
address these 3 groups. I love that again. It's traditional, right, customers, online, and now social.
And I love Brian's perspective, and I kind of have a different view of that. It's not contrary to that. It's just kind of a different perspective. Mm-hmm. And I think we are all, you and I, our parents, our family members, our friends, we're all social customers, right? So we are consistently having conversations about which airline to fly, which airline not to fly, right, what products to buy. And we're always influencing our graph, the people around us, whether we have millions of followers or 2 followers, right, or even if we're not even online and we're just having a conversation at a community group or a church or somewhere where you're convincing people to either change their behavior. And it reminds me of when I was a child because I grew up with a single mom, and so my mom and her aunts would be in the living room talking about all these products that they use, and I'm going to date myself here, but like Palmolive, Ovaltine, all these brands that I grew up with, mac and cheese, right? These with the blue and blue white box. Yep. And so I remember my mom saying, back in the day, oh, I love Palmolive because you're doing the dishes, and then afterwards your hands are soft, like you put lotion on it. And so those conversations are still happening today. They're just not confined to the living room or the car or the park. They're amplified. They're everywhere. So what Brian's trying to say is that the social customer, while there's 3 distinct groups, they're all having the same conversation about the brands that they truly care about and the brands that they don't. And we as marketers have to not just listen, but we need to take action. And I speak at conferences here and there, and I always bring up this example, and it's a true example of very early on in my marriage. And I would bet that Jeff does not do this.
I don't know. Let's see.
So it really involves socks. These are my daughter's socks, and they just happen to be here. But sometimes when I'm very early on in my career, I'd be downstairs watching SportsCenter, on the laptop and working, and then I'd kind of at the end of the night I'd go upstairs and I'd forget my socks in the living room. And, the next morning my wife would be like, honey, do me a favor and just put them in the hamper. It only takes a second. So I'd look at her and I'd be like, honey, you got it. I will do it. I apologize. I'm sorry. And then the next day I repeat that behavior.
Right.
And it happened for a while. And, my wife has trained me over the years. So I don't leave the cupboards open anymore. I make sure that, the toilet seat is down when I leave the bathroom. I don't leave the towel in the bathroom. So I've not just listened to my wife, but I've changed my behavior and I've acted upon that. And I think it's a valuable lesson for business where, you have all these customers saying you should do that or you should do this, or I have a problem with this and I have a problem with that. And if you're not really taking steps to solve the problem, then there's a disconnect. And one of the examples that I often use is Comcast. And I'm a huge Comcast customer. I've been a Comcast customer for like a decade. I love their service. I've never had a problem with it. But if you go to Twitter and search for Comcast, they're inundated with people saying, you guys suck. Where's my technician? They're late. They never showed up. And that's one of the biggest issues that Comcast is dealing with, right? The cool thing is, and what I love that Frank did years ago was, if I tweet that I'm having an issue with Comcast, somebody's going to respond and they're going to expedite whatever the problem is.
Right.
But there's a deeper kind of issue here. And the issue is that from the time that I call in to support and say, I need a new DVR because NFL weekend starting, I need to record some games. From the time that I call into customer support to when that agent then puts in a ticket, goes to a queue, the queue goes to the technician then, goes to the work in the morning and picks up his schedule and says, okay, I got, this over here in Santa Clara and San Jose, begins to plan his day. There's a disconnect in the process there because that's a huge problem. They're always late to their appointments. So it's not a support problem. It's not it's an operations problem, right? So
right.
I often give that example because, while Comcast is good at handling individual problems, they're listening. They're not actually changing the way they do business. And they need to do that.
Interesting. Oh, so interesting. So good. You hit on so many good things. Part of what you talk about and with companies and listening, and where's that little spot? I have so many. This book is like highlighted to death. I love it. Digital conversation guidelines.
Oh, yes.
That was really interesting. I love because what I do social media just for myself and for a company and corporation. It's easy when there's one, maybe a few people to get on board. What about when you've got a huge company? You talk about some lessons learned in here, but the digital conversation guide. So interesting. What can you talk about that a little more? Because I love that they're using these digital conversation guides not only to kind of help get everyone on the same page, get them the information about a product, its release, maybe where the press release or when it's publishing, but they're not telling people what to say. One of the biggest things I see that it just kind of drives me bananas is prepackaged tweets. And I know that the people that do them mean well, but it's like I just have a real problem with someone else. Because, we all have our different tone that we speak in, even on Twitter. So, I don't know, is there anything you want to talk about on digital conversation guides?
Yeah, we did that years ago at Intel. And, what we always said, like, okay, here's some sample tweets. Use your own voice. Just make sure you use this hashtag. Use this bit.ly link so we can track it.
Great.
Hit on these key messages, but don't for God forbid, don't copy and paste. Okay. Yeah. But we wanted to give them, it was an engineering culture at Intel. We wanted to give them some ideas of tweets and Facebook, status updates. But the good thing about the conversation guide is, and it's not just for big, large organizations. It could be for, a consultant or a small two-man shop or even an entrepreneur who's with a startup, because it allows not just him or her, but it allows those who are sharing that content to what you alluded to earlier was to be consistent. Now take that thought process from an advocate perspective, right? So imagine you have like these people who just love you to death, and I'm sure you have a ton of those, Rochelle, and are retweeting you. But no, imagine for a business that, they have these customers that just gravitate towards them or their brand or their product, being able to say, hey, would you mind sharing this information, right? So you maybe you invite them to a private Facebook group or a private LinkedIn group, or maybe it's a phone call, or maybe it's just email, and say, look, we want you to participate in launching this product with us. Here's the hashtag. Our press release goes live Monday at 8 a.m. Here's the bit.ly. Here's, our video assets. Feel free to embed on your blog. Right. We'll put it on our fan page. It's a way to kind of make sure that the message is consistent.
Yep.
And message consistency is very important because most customers, most individuals, most people who even vote need to hear things 3 to 5 times before they start to believe it. So it's important that there's multiple messages through customers, through marketing, through everything, so that you can begin to change customer behavior.
So, you hit on so many good things there. First of all, the 3 to 5 messages, I wonder if they hear it from someone they really, really trust, or like you mentioned in the book, employees of companies. If you're hearing something about something that's going on with that company and the employee gives you the inside scoop, so believable, right? By the numbers. So,
it is.
I wonder if that 3 to 5 messages, if it's even less, if they hear it from someone they know they trust, because now they've been following them, for a few years now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very cool. And I love that you mentioned the phone, because my great friend Ted Wynn will, every once in a while, when I send a tweet, I'll get a phone call from him. He goes, I just want, and again, people don't think it's like the simple things, but how effective is that? Responding right away when someone tweets with a phone call. So he's genius, Ted Wynn. I'm sure that you've gotten to know him already. And another thing that you hit on that I love, that I want to talk about further, I saw you talking about it last night with someone on Twitter, the influencer versus the advocate.
Ooh, my favorite topic.
So good. Let's talk about that.
Okay. So I've been blasted online for this point of view, and whatever, it's my point of view. It's not, whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. It's how I feel.
Yes.
But when I think about an influencer, right? An influencer is, and I talk with Matt Collier about this a lot, and Tech Gorilla, which is Matt Writings on Twitter, and Chuck and a few other friends. And the idea is that, influencers, we're all influencers, right? We all influence 1, 2, 50, 100 people. When a company says we need an influencer, we need a program, we need to send them the latest product, or we need to send them to CES. When you think about the relationship between a business and an influencer, 9 times out of 10, it's built on incentives. Meaning, right. I'm an influencer and I say, okay, I'm going to blog about you, but send me a product for 6 months, or send me to CES, round trip tickets paid, and parties and all that, and I will blog the crap out of your product.
Right.
Now that's good for kind of short-term building buzz, and I hate that word. But
Me too.
kind of awareness. I hate buzz. I don't. Okay. I hate when clients say, "I want to build buzz."
Yeah, anyway, you're just like, oh, kiss of death.
I know. So that's fine and dandy, right? Influencers are good for that. An advocate is somebody who has a natural affinity towards a brand. They're talking about a product or a brand or something, a service, without being asked to, and they don't care whether or not we're listening, because there's just this natural affinity between, or what I call emotional equity, between them, the advocate, and a brand. Now, the advocate may only have 50 followers, and that's completely okay. Their conversations are organic, they're real, they're human, and I would bet that they're trusted with their small circle of friends. Yeah. So when they're saying, oh my God, I just got this new phone, or I just got off of Air Canada or Virgin America or whatever, I love their service, and personally, I love Southwest. They're blasted on, I love Southwest. But when we do that, we're influencing people.
Right.
We're influencing people to do one of two things: to buy or not to buy. So an advocate is some advocates certainly could be influencers, right? But not all influencers are advocates. Right. Now, an advocate, while they don't have a wide reach, imagine bringing them in to a private program like a LinkedIn group or Facebook group, and beginning to have phone calls. We did this at Yahoo, where we would have monthly roundtable phone calls with these groups of people that used Yahoo groups. And we would be like, how can we improve the product? What's your biggest pain point? How can we help you in your business? And it really created a very, very strong tie and relationship with us.
Oh, wow. That's brilliant. I love that. So, people, as you can tell, friends, really, really, really great information in here. And again, I want to be respectful of your time, Brian, and those of you watching. So, I just call you Brian Solis.
I know.
Michael,
okay.
I'm sorry.
No, you know why? It's partly my
I
my
just
handle
looked at
too.
it and it is. Where did that Twitter handle come from?
So I have no
I
idea.
meant to ask you that.
So it's some people say, and I don't tell me what you think or thought it was. Some people say it's Brito pain, Brito plan. It's actually Britopian.
Oh, Britopian.
Yes, and so that's my blog.
Oh, I read it as Brito peon or peon. I'm like, he's not a peon, but I thought maybe it's a fun play on his last name and.
No, it was.
Oh.
You're not the first person that says that. And by the way, you're not the first person to call me Brian. And I think because it's the BRI,
Yeah.
my name is Brian. So
Yeah,
Britopian.
Well, you're very
But,
sorry,
you know,
that just slipped. I just looked at your
it's
book
okay.
cover.
Being in the military, also people call me by my last name. Even at work, they call me Brito. It's actually a Portuguese name.
Oh.
But so if you want to roll the R, you can say Brito or
Brito.
whatever you want.
That's awesome. Well, what I was trying to get at before I botched your first name, but you're so gracious about it. You've been doing the round. You were at Blog World this year speaking. You've been doing, I know, just with your job. And again, I highly encourage you guys to go and look at, it's on the back cover. Look at Michael's bio. I was going to have him do his elevator pitch, but he's kind of woven in so beautifully all the different companies that he's worked for. Look at all my notes in here. Sorry. So he's so qualified. He's just such a good guy. Marine for
Yes.
7-8 years? I'm
8 years,
not allowed to say former. Sorry.
That's right.
My father would kill me. But you're so qualified. And again, so you've been doing the rounds, sharing all your information with everyone, all the companies that you've worked for. You have a lot of great case studies. Can you share something with us that you haven't really got to talk about through all the tours and all the speaking engagements? Something that was in the book, maybe a case study that doesn't get a lot of play. I'd love for people to hear something fresh. And again, you to get the opportunity to maybe say, I haven't been able to hit on this as much, but this is very important.
So one of the things that I talk about a lot, I think it's chapter 9 or 10 or maybe 8, I don't know, but it's about content, and I call it the ethical bribe. Basically, what it is we as marketers or whoever, we are bribing people ethically to believe what we're trying to say, and we do that a variety of ways. And everything that we do is content. The book is content. My blog is content. The websites are content. Press releases are content. Conversations are content because they're quoted and blogged about. So it's important that, kind of going back to what we said earlier, that our content is believable, that it's relevant, and that it's hitting the customer at the right time. One of the examples that I like to give is when I was refinancing my home about 6 years ago, driving down 101, and I would see like billboards after billboards of interest rates. I listened to talk radio, people saying, "Yeah, refinance now, 3.5 APR." I'd see ads, and the minute that I refinanced my home, all of those ads went away. And the truth of the matter is, they didn't go away. They just weren't relevant to me anymore, so I tuned them out.
Right.
That's why one of the reasons, I love Twitter and the lists is that I can segment people and content. And I only have 5 lists that I follow. I don't follow my whole feed. And you are in one of those lists, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
And so it's a way for me to consume content that's relevant to me in a specific time frame, as well as Google circles, right? We put people in circles based on however we feel or however we want to segment, and we can follow content, we can share content based on those. That Brian Solis calls it the attention dashboard, and I think that we as customers have that. So the brands and the marketers and the consultants and politicians have to figure out a way to reach the customer through relevant content.
Yep, and I love that chapter too. I was rereading it last night. It was really good because I'm creating content. It's nice to just go back and get some purpose and some vision again, and just get back to the root of what you're trying to do. But you're so right. I don't know about you, we are just, I have everything finely tuned now. Maybe that's why I love Twitter as well. I love Twitter lists. I'm so bummed they block you at 20 because I just love them. And I've had to delete a few and to replace with new ones, but they're great. And it's like, I've got it so finely tuned now where I can get my news and get it, and I do RSS feeds too. But you're right. It's like people really have to be thoughtful about what they're putting out because, you know, to make it into someone's list is huge. Yeah. Huge, such a compliment, and that'd be a great place for a company on Twitter to go see all the lists that they're put on. And what a great clue, right, of people that are those advocates. You know, they've handpicked you to be on a list. So what a great place to start, right?
Yes.
We love Twitter lists. So anyhow, Michael, thank you so much for your time. I just highly encourage everyone to get a copy of this book. It's so good. And actually, I will tell you, everyone, this is only the second interview I've done this year, 4 books. It's been Guy Kawasaki's Enchantment and Michael Brito's Smart Business, Social Business. So if I had to give you 2 books for the whole year, those 2 would be it. So I hope you enjoy. Michael, thank you again for your time.
Rochelle, you've been fantastic. Thank you. Have a fantastic weekend.
You too. Thanks again. All right, everyone. Have a great time and a great Thanksgiving. We're all very grateful for you. And hit us up on Twitter. Thanks.
Thank you.